So I hope that when you have this knowledge within you right now, hindi natin pagtatawanan yung ibang tao kung bakit up until now, nandyan pa rin sila sa pinagkakaabalahan nila ngayon. No? There are different levels of consciousness. Animalistic consciousness, objective consciousness, spiritual consciousness, psychic consciousness, and enlightened consciousness. That's for the humans. If you see your friend still going to that born-again church, why laugh at him? Why mock him? Because he's not like you and you're studying higher mysteries of mysticism and esoteric studies, di ba? It's not good. You're in a spiritual path and you should be tolerant to other people because everyone is actually working hard according to their level of consciousness. They are working hard according to their level of awakening. So kung ano yung level of awakening nila and they're doing their best on that specific level, then let them be. Di ba? Kung yung friend mo nakafocus siya sa career niya, huwag mong pagtawanan. Ay, ano ka ba? Napaka-materialistic mo. Huwag ganun. Alright? Because everyone has their own place right here, right now. We are evolving. And we also don't say that they are evolving very late because they also have their own struggles. They have their own path. They have their own roadblocks. They have their own lessons that they need to learn before they progress to the next level. Hello everyone. Namaste. My name is Reverend Father Joseph Lagumbay at isa po akong liberal Catholic priest from the Catholic Universalist Church. Ngayon po pag-uusapan natin, what are the 7 levels of consciousness? But before that, intro. Ano nga ba itong consciousness? Scientists and philosophers, even poets, for centuries has been debating about this topic. Ano nga ba talaga itong consciousness, no? Is this something within our brains and then, we just try to express it? Or is it something beyond our brains, tapos our brains are just a receiver? Now, scientists and philosophers and artists and poets might not agree on what consciousness is. However, only one thing is for sure. Consciousness do exist. The Upanishads, the ancient mystics of India, in their literature, they are always showing that consciousness is actually everywhere. Everything has its own consciousness. Though consciousness might not be something that is very evident, but it is there. Alright? If you do a quick search on Google, consciousness actually means the levels of being aware or the level of being awakened. It is the levels of your knowing or understanding about your inner self and the outer world or your external world. So consciousness is something that is within everything and everyone. And right now, I am going to discuss how consciousness is being able to manifest within everything and everyone. Ganito kasi yan. Consciousness is evolving. Meaning to say, not everyone has the same levels of consciousness. For example, if you are playing an online game, if you are just new to the game, of course, your character doesn't have any equipments, let's say any armor, any potion or whatnot. But habang tumatagal ka sa laro, you acquire mana, you acquire potion, you acquire money, and then you start buying stuff, and then your character actually improves as your level progresses. So until such time na narating mo na yung pinaka, let's say, highest possible evolution of your character, it becomes very, very strong. It might look different from when it started, but it just evolved, right? It just changed through time. So ganun din ang consciousness. Now, there are 7 levels of consciousness and 5 levels of it are actually present in human beings. So the first level of consciousness, this is what we call the primordial consciousness or the base consciousness. So this consciousness is actually being manifested in the rocks or the minerals, the basic elements, the non-living things that we're calling. And this state kasi of consciousness, if you look at the rock, if you really look at it under an electron microscope, you will see that the rocks possess electric charges. And those electric charges that are within the rocks, these are actually consciousness. Now, according to the mystics, the consciousness within the rocks, they are sleeping. It is sleeping, but it is there. Now, the next level of consciousness, we have the consciousness that is being manifested in the plants. No, so this consciousness, according to the Upanishads, this level of consciousness, the consciousness here right now is dreaming. Right? So sleeping, and now the consciousness is dreaming. It is there. It's not yet awakened, but it is still dreaming. Now, before one level of consciousness goes to the next level of consciousness, hindi yan clear-cut na, oh, I am in the first level of consciousness and the next, I'm in the second level of consciousness. No, it is actually a gradual shift, or it's a gradual evolution. Because in between the non-living thing and the living thing, the rocks and the plants, there are several, organisms that are, let's say, in between the two, because there's an evolution of what? The physicality. There is an evolution of matter. So the evolution of matter now is also is in correspondence to the evolution of consciousness. That's why we have bacteria, we have plant-like organisms, and so on, until it becomes the plant. Now, from this level of consciousness, the consciousness that is being manifested by the plants it's also slowly evolving towards the third level of consciousness, which is what we call the animalistic consciousness. So from the primordial consciousness to the plant consciousness, now we have the animalistic consciousness. And the animals have, different levels of consciousness because it is also evolving. Other animals are more conscious than others. It depends now on their ability to adapt, ability to think, right? So now, the animalistic consciousness is also being manifested by humans. And what is present in the animalistic consciousness? Sa animalistic consciousness kasi, dito yung manifestation ng ego. Dito yung manifestation ng, just barely surviving. So, you just act according to your stimulus. Just like the animals. Kung gutom ka, kakain ka. Kung uhaw ka, iinom ka. Ganon. And you don't have yet that awareness of thinking about others because you are just focused on yourself. It is a self-centered awareness. So, from the primordial consciousness of the rocks, consciousness is sleeping. In the plants, consciousness is dreaming. In the animals, now, consciousness is awake. However, consciousness is still not self-aware. Alright? So ngayon, it is also manifesting in the humans. However, kapag dumating na sa level na you are already a human, your consciousness now is somewhat much higher. Your animalistic consciousness is much higher than the animalistic consciousness of the lower animals. Now, when we evolve now into human beings, we have now the capacity or the ability to evolve into the higher levels of consciousness. And the next level of consciousness after the animalistic consciousness is what we call the objective consciousness. So, what is objective consciousness? Objective consciousness, it's when you are already self-aware. You are aware now that you have the ego or the I am. But this is not the full awareness yet. This is still the awareness of the ego, that you have an identity, that you need to do something in order for you to survive and in order for you to progress in this life. So hindi ka na dun sa lower animalistic consciousness, kundi nandito ka na ngayon sa objective consciousness wherein you are doing something in order for you to grow and evolve. So it starts from the selfish desires of, being the top in your class, being the number one salesperson in your office, and so on, no? Until it evolves. It evolves into, maybe you want to start a family already, loving someone aside from yourself, but it's still limited, no? Limited pa rin siya. And it also evolves, you become aware of your community. So yun, meron ka ng objective talaga wherein you start to do things to have yourself, you start doing things in order for you to become a better individual, better person in the community, and so on. Diba? So yun. And then the next level, the fifth level of consciousness is what we call the spiritual consciousness. Now, kapag dumating ka na sa spiritual consciousness, dito na nagiging dito na nagbabago yung lahat. Kasi once you're in the spiritual consciousness already, sometimes those things that you are, trying to manifest when you were still on the objective consciousness, sometimes hindi mo na ginagawa yon because it goes against your spiritual morals. So during this time, ang lowest level kasi nito is nagiging religious ka na, pumupunta ka na sa simbahan, until you participate in the church ministry and so on. And others, those who are more and more, let's say, advanced in the spiritual path is, yun na, nagiging, nagpa-participate na sa occultism, nagpa-participate na sa mysticism, because spirituality kasi, it starts from religion. You go into your religious, tradition until such time na you want to understand more, and then you go out from your religious tradition, and then you seek deeper and deeper and deeper until you found mysticism, you found occultism, and all these things that we are trying to study in this page. Now, minsan ang isang tao, hindi enough ang isang lifetime para mag-progress ka sa lahat ng 7 or let's say 5 levels of consciousness, kasi 5 level of consciousness lang kasi nasa tao. So, hindi tayo nag-a-advance to these 5 levels of consciousness in one lifetime. Kaya sometimes when we die, we reincarnate so that we continue to evolve. Our souls and our physical bodies continue to evolve. So, kaya may mga tao na they are still very young but they are very spiritual already. They go into churches, others they're already into mysticism, into meditation, and other esoteric stuff. It's because during their past life, they have already reached the spiritual consciousness before they die. That's also the explanation why yung mga kadalasan, yung mga matatanda, sila yung napaka-spiritual. It's because on that specific lifetime, they have already surpassed the animalistic, the objective consciousness, and so they have evolved into this what we call spiritual consciousness. And unfortunately, maybe in the previous lifetime, tumanda na sila, then they die. So right now, when they are born into this world, that's the time when they start over again. However, they start from where they ended on their previous lifetime, because that's part of their karma, right? So right now, kaya may mga in their 20s or 30s right now that's already very, very spiritual. It's because you have earned that, or you have already reached that level, the spiritual consciousness in your previous lifetime. Now, when you are in the spiritual consciousness, mag-e-evolve ka pa. Because once you go deeper and deeper into the mysteries, once you go deeper and deeper into the esoteric studies, you go deeper and deeper into meditation, you go deeper and deeper into knowing the God that is within you, you will start to manifest what we call in the 6th level of consciousness, which is what we call the psychic consciousness. So, dito na lumalabas yung mga abilities of being an empath. Yung iba nagiging clairsentient, they can feel energies, others can see energies, others can, even have visions of the higher dimensions, have visions of angels, have visions even of the future happenings, So, eto, in this level of consciousness, dito na nagmamanifest yung tinatawag natin na ESP, o tinatawag natin psychic abilities. However, these are actually normal. This is normal, and humans can actually do this. It's just that because our level of consciousness is not yet ready, so hindi pa ito nagmamanifest sa atin. However, we need to be very mindful about this once we, start seeing things, when we start feeling things, energies and stuff. We should not get blinded by these gifts or by this phenomena that is happening, because it is normal, and we should not think that we are greater than the source or God, because these are just manifestations, a tiny speck of manifestation of the power of the ultimate one reality, the one ultimate reality that we call God. So we should not be egoistic about this, because we are just conduits of the divine. Alright? Kasi marami ako nakikita na dumating na sa psychic consciousness, doon na, nawala na, and instead of progressing higher, they regress, or not really regress, but their evolution slowed down because they get too attached to the abilities that they have manifested. Now, the last level of consciousness, we call this the enlightened consciousness. So, this is the consciousness of the enlightened or the awakened masters that we call. In the course of history, ilan lamang ang alam natin na naka-reach sa level na ganito. Kukunti lang talaga, namely Prince Siddhartha Gautama, or also known as the Buddha in India, and also Mar Yeshua ben Yosef, or Lord Jesus, no, our Lord and Master Jesus. Actually, meron pang iba, pero siguro hindi lang sila properly documented, hindi sila ganon kasikat. However, there are other people who have already, reached this level of enlightenment or awakening. Now, when a person reaches this level, the evolution doesn't stop. The evolution might have stopped for them in the physical realm. However, there are also, evolutionary grades on the higher realm. And with that, we really couldn't say much of those things because those are beyond our current consciousness. Okay? So, guys, I hope you've learned something new today about the levels of consciousness. So, I hope that when you have this knowledge within you right now, hindi natin pagtatawanan yung ibang tao kung bakit up until now, nandyan pa rin sila sa pinagkakaabalahan nila ngayon. No? There are different levels of consciousness: animalistic consciousness, objective consciousness, spiritual consciousness, psychic consciousness, and enlightened consciousness. That's for the humans. If you see your friend still going to that born-again church, why laugh at him? Why mock him? Because he's not like you and you're studying higher mysteries of mysticism and esoteric studies, di ba? It's not good. You're in a spiritual path and you should be tolerant to other people because everyone is actually working hard according to their level of consciousness. They are working hard according to their level of awakening. So kung ano yung level of awakening nila and they're doing their best on that specific level, then let them be. Diba? Kung yung friend mo nakafocus siya sa career niya, huwag mong pagtawanan. Ay, ano ka ba? Napaka-materialistic mo. Huwag ganun. Alright? Because everyone has their own place right here, right now. We are evolving. And we also don't say that they are evolving very late because they also have their own struggles. They have their own path. They have their own roadblocks. They have their own lessons that they need to learn before they progress to the next level. I hope that's clear. And if this is your first time watching my video, please hit like below. At paki-subscribe na din po, then ring the notification bell so that you'll be one of the few people who will be aware of my next videos. No? Para pag nag-upload ako ng video, isa ka po sa unang makakakita nito. Alright, so I hope that's clear. And thank you so much for watching. This has been Reverend Father Joseph Lagumbay saying Namaste.